The Magical Pot. In a quaint village nestled at the foot of the Whispering Mountains lived a young woman named Elara. She was known for her kind heart, a quiet strength that belied her gentle demeanor, and eyes that held the wisdom of the ancient forests around her. Elara lived a simple life, often spending her days tending to her small garden and helping her elderly neighbors, her hands always busy, her spirit always calm. The village itself was ancient, filled with cobbled streets and houses with moss-covered roofs, and it was whispered that deep within the surrounding forests, old magic still lingered, a remnant of a time when the world was younger and more mysterious. One crisp autumn morning, as Elara was gathering herbs by the edge of the enchanted Willow Creek, a place where the water always seemed to murmur secrets, she noticed an unusual glint beneath a tangle of gnarled roots. It wasn't the sparkle of a forgotten coin or a lost trinket, but something far subtler, a soft, inviting gleam. Curious, she knelt down, carefully brushing away the damp earth and decaying leaves. What she uncovered was a small, unassuming clay pot. It was a dull, earthy brown, with no discernible markings or decorations, yet it seemed to hum with a faint, almost imperceptible warmth. As Elara's fingers grazed its rough, sun-baked surface, a strange tingling sensation, like distant bells ringing, spread through her hand and up her arm. She picked it up, feeling its surprising weight. It wasn't heavy with anything inside, but seemed to possess an intrinsic density, as if forged from ancient stone rather than simple clay. There was a faint scent, like rain on dry earth mixed with something sweet, almost like wild honey. Elara had never seen anything like it in the village, nor had she heard tales of such a pot from the elders who knew every legend. Intrigued, a quiet sense of wonder stirring within her, she decided to take it home, sensing that this was no ordinary find. Little did she know, this simple clay pot, lying hidden for centuries, held secrets that would soon change her life and the fate of her village forever. Back in her cozy cottage, Elara placed the pot on her worn wooden table, its warmth radiating gently into the cool room. She examined it more closely, turning it over in her hands. There was no lid, and the inside seemed perfectly smooth and empty. Later that evening, as she prepared her simple supper of vegetable stew, a thought struck her. She had run out of salt. Remembering the pot, a strange impulse guided her. "I wish I had some salt," she murmured, half to herself, as she gently placed her empty salt shaker inside the pot. To her astonishment, when she pulled the shaker out a moment later, it was filled to the brim with glistening white salt crystals. Elara gasped, her heart leaping. She tried again, this time with a pinch of flour, which she sprinkled into the pot. "I wish for more flour," she whispered, her voice trembling with disbelief. Instantly, the pot began to glow with a soft, internal light, and when she peered inside, it was brimming with the finest, whitest flour she had ever seen. The realization dawned on her. She had found a magical pot, one that could conjure anything she desired, as long as it was placed inside. Over the next few weeks, Elara used the pot sparingly and wisely. She wished for fresh bread for the hungry, warm blankets for the shivering elderly, and forgotten tools for the struggling farmers. Each time, the pot delivered, glowing faintly and humming with quiet power. She never wished for anything for herself, content with her simple life, but delighted in alleviating the small hardships of her community. Her neighbors, who had always known her kindness, began to notice the subtle improvements in their lives. A new spade would mysteriously appear, a sudden abundance of berries would fill their baskets, and no one ever seemed to go hungry in Elara's vicinity. They spoke of Elara's good luck and the blessings she brought, never suspecting the humble pot hidden in her cottage. However, secrets, especially magical ones, are rarely kept forever. A merchant, old and wizened, named Silas, frequented the village. Silas had a keen eye for unusual happenings and an even keener ear for whispers of fortune. He noticed the sudden prosperity in the otherwise struggling village, a prosperity that seemed to radiate from Elara's modest home. His suspicion grew, and one day, under the guise of trading rare spices, he visited Elara's cottage. "My dear Elara," Silas began, his eyes darting around her simple home, "your garden is flourishing, your neighbors are hale, and yet you seem to lack for nothing. What is your secret?" Elara, ever honest, hesitated. She had guarded the pot's secret closely, fearing its power might be misused. But Silas's gaze was sharp and his smile too knowing. Feeling a strange compulsion, she decided to reveal a glimpse of the truth. She brought out the pot. "It is a gift," she said softly, "a magical pot that grants wishes for what is placed inside." Silas's eyes widened with greed. "Show me," he demanded, barely containing his excitement. Elara, against her better judgment, placed a single silver coin into the pot. "I wish for more silver," she whispered. The pot glowed, and instantly a shower of silver coins tumbled out, filling the pot and overflowing onto the table. Silas gasped, his face contorting with avarice. This pot is priceless. It could make me richer than any king." He lunged for it, but Elara instinctively pulled it back. "It is not for greed, Silas. It is for kindness." But Silas was beyond reason. He wrestled the pot from her grasp, his strength surprising for his age. "Foolish girl. Kindness doesn't fill coffers. This pot is mine now." With a triumphant cackle, he fled Elara's cottage, the magical pot clutched tightly in his arms. Elara was heartbroken. Not for the loss of the pot itself, but for the corruption it would bring. She knew Silas's heart was dark, and such power in his hands would only lead to misery. She watched from her doorway as Silas rode out of the village, disappearing into the winding forest path. Silas wasted no time in testing his new treasure. He wished for gold, for jewels, for vast estates, and the pot, true to its nature, delivered. Soon, Silas became the wealthiest man in the kingdom, his riches overflowing. He built a monstrous mansion, adorned with gaudy ornaments, and filled it with servants who trembled at his every command. Yet, for all his wealth, Silas was miserable. He trusted no one, feared assassination, and spent his days guarding his treasures, his heart growing colder and his nights sleepless. The magic of the pot, however, had a subtle, unseen consequence. The pot, in its pure form, drew its power from the intention of the user. When used for kindness, its magic was stable and pure. But when used for unchecked greed and selfishness, it began to warp, subtly corrupting the very essence of what it produced. The gold Silas wished for, while real, had a dull sheen that seemed to absorb light, rather than reflect it. The jewels seemed to dim over time, losing their sparkle. The food he conjured tasted bland, no matter how exotic. Even the air in his mansion felt heavy and lifeless. The magic, now tainted by avarice, slowly poisoned his life, leaving him empty despite his endless possessions. Word of Silas's sudden, enormous wealth reached the ears of the tyrannical King Valerius, who ruled the kingdom with an iron fist and an insatiable appetite for power. Valerius, always seeking to expand his coffers and crush any perceived rival, immediately sent his soldiers to seize Silas's mansion and all his wealth. Silas, for all his riches, had no real power, only possessions. He was easily overcome, his magical pot discovered amongst his hoard. King Valerius, a man even more ruthless than Silas, quickly discerned the pot's power. "A pot that grants wishes," he roared with delight. "This is what I need to conquer all kingdoms." His ambition knew no bounds. He began to wish for armies of invincible soldiers, impenetrable fortresses, and weapons of unimaginable destruction. The pot, now channeling the destructive ambition of a king, began to change more rapidly. Each wish for power and conquest twisted its magic further. The soldiers it conjured were fierce, but seemed to lack souls, fighting with a chilling, mechanical efficiency that brought terror but no loyalty. The fortresses appeared strong, but their stones felt cold and brittle, prone to cracking under unforeseen pressures. The weapons were mighty, but their touch brought sickness and decay, polluting the very lands they were meant to defend. The kingdom, once vibrant, became a land of fear and desolation. The crops withered, the rivers ran murky, and a suffocating gloom settled over everything. The people, burdened by endless wars and heavy taxes, suffered terribly. Even the king, surrounded by his invincible army and impenetrable forts, found himself constantly paranoid, his victories hollow, his power a curse. The very magic he wielded for conquest was turning his kingdom into a wasteland and his heart into a stone. Back in the village, Elara felt the blight of the king's corrupt magic spreading. The Willow Creek, once clear, became sluggish. Her gardens struggled. The joy in the villagers' eyes dwindled, replaced by fear and hardship. She knew she had to act, to reclaim the pot and restore its true purpose. Gathering her courage, Elara embarked on a perilous journey to the king's palace. It was a long and dangerous path through forests now choked with strange, thorny vines and past villages emptied by war. Her journey was guided by an unwavering belief in the pot's original purpose and the hope of healing her land. When she finally reached the palace, it was a terrifying sight. Dark banners hung from its towers, and the air thrummed with a sinister energy. Stealthily, Elara made her way inside, using her knowledge of forgotten paths and her quiet determination. She found the king's throne room, where Valerius sat, hunched and gaunt, nervously clutching the magical pot. The pot, once a dull brown, now pulsed with an angry, dark red glow, its warmth replaced by a chilling vibration. "You!" Valerius shrieked, spotting Elara in the shadows. "What are you doing here, peasant girl?" Elara stepped forward, her gaze firm. "I have come for the pot, King Valerius. It is not meant for conquest, but for kindness." Valerius laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "Kindness? What is kindness when one can have power?" He pointed the pot at her. "Guards, seize her." But as the guards advanced, Elara cried out, "The pot's magic is corrupted, King Valerius. It is destroying your kingdom, just as it poisoned Silas's wealth. Look around you. Your power is an illusion, built on fear and decay." As she spoke, the pot in Valerius's hand began to glow erratically, its dark red light flickering. A crack appeared on its surface. The king, startled, looked at the crack, then at his guards, who, though numerous, seemed strangely listless, their armor covered in a fine dust of rust. The magic was failing, or rather, rejecting his malevolent will. "It will break," King Elara warned, "and all the ill-gotten magic will unravel, leaving only ruin." In a moment of panicked desperation, Valerius, fearing the pot's destruction and the loss of his power, lunged at Elara, trying to strike her with it. But as he swung, the pot slipped from his grasp. It flew through the air, hitting the stone floor with a resounding crack. It shattered into 1,000 pieces. A wave of pure, untainted magic, cool and invigorating, washed over the throne room. The oppressive gloom lifted. The guards, as if waking from a trance, looked around in confusion, their cold, lifeless eyes suddenly clearing. Outside, the dark banners disintegrated, and the thorny vines around the palace withered to dust. The air grew sweet and clean. The king, stripped of his power, collapsed onto his throne, suddenly appearing frail and terrified. He was no longer a tyrant, but just a man, lost and afraid. Elara, though saddened by the pot's destruction, felt a profound sense of peace. The magic was gone, but its cleansing wave had healed the land and freed the people from the king's oppressive reign. The villagers, now free, began to reclaim their lives. They helped rebuild, not with conjured materials, but with their own hands, working together, their spirits renewed. As for Elara, she returned to her simple life, forever revered as the quiet heroine who saved the kingdom. She never found another magical pot, nor did she seek one. She understood that true magic wasn't found in enchanted objects that granted wishes, but in the enduring kindness of a community, the strength of a compassionate heart, and the simple act of working together for the greater good. The memory of the magical pot, and its lesson, lived on, a reminder that the purest power comes from the purest intentions. If you enjoyed the story, subscribe the channel and like the video. Thank you.